Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. I'm still recovering from eyelid surgery and I still have kind of a gnarly black eye. So I couldn't find my aviators, so I borrowed one of my kids' sunglasses. I'm getting ready to go to Atlanta later this week. And so I was just talking with one of my kids about whether they could help pick up some of my garden chores as B and I are going to be gone for like 5.5 days. And one of those garden chores this time of year is watching out for squash bugs. And I realized maybe y'all, and I realized maybe it would be helpful to discuss that with y'all as well as with my kid. So I have a couple of videos on squash bugs. In fact, I have one great instructional, I'm gonna talk myself up a little bit. I have one great instructional video that is my strategies for dealing with squash bugs in an organic way. Squash bugs are something that I didn't have to deal with in Oregon until 2 years ago. I think was the first year that I had squash bugs in my garden, and my kid was working at a local plant nursery and brought home some of the dumpster plants. Like employees could go and there'd be these big racks out by the dumpster of plants that like didn't look super perfect or weren't selling well or had broken branches, and employees were free to take them on certain days of the week. And so she brought home some summer squash plants, and I think she brought in squash bug eggs because that was the first time I ever had squash bugs. And the first plant I saw them on was that rescue squash from Portland Nursery. So cautionary tale if you're buying starts at stores. Always. You can always import pests and diseases when you buy plants and bring them into your garden. But I've also seen how they are now pretty common and widespread in this area, and that means that we need strategies for dealing with them. Oh, there is. Hang on a second. Okay, it's hard when I'm sitting here filming and there's a calendula right here, a couple of them, and they're just covered in all kinds of native bees, so I keep getting distracted. Okay, so how do you deal with squash bugs? I'm not going to go into it in detail in this video. I would really encourage you to go watch my video where I talk about the organic methods that I use. But I think it's important to be aware that this is the time of year you need to be vigilant. If you get on top of the issue, you can keep it controlled. It takes just a few minutes every day walking your garden to keep this issue at bay, to keep like a balance, because there aren't really any predators for squash bugs. My chickens and ducks certainly will not eat them. And so they can get really disproportionately, there's no checks on them, so they can really proliferate in the garden and have a huge impact on squash plants. But there's no reason to spray. I see folks in regular gardening groups being like, I'm spraying 7 on my plants to deal with squash bugs. Like, please don't do that. Don't put 7 around your food. It's a nasty, nasty pesticide. Don't put it around your food. But rather, but like that's not necessary. And there are times when we live in an, oh, okay, let me deal with my knee here. And folks might say, well, Angela, you live in a permaculture garden, so you shouldn't have any pests or diseases. I think it's important to remember that most of us are dealing with depleted gardens where there's probably been a lawn for a long period of time. There's probably very little topsoil. We're working on regenerating and turning our garden back into much more of a balanced ecosystem. And when we have a situation where we are not giving plants the optimal conditions at all times, because we're still working on that process and it takes years and years, that means our plants can be a little bit weaker and can be more prone to pest and disease pressure. And that's something that we need to understand. And we might need some involvement as the gardener in order to help our plants over that hump, right? In order to get the yield that we need to feed our families. So I'm going to leave it there. But please go watch my video on dealing with squash bugs. And I hope that you can stay on top of it, nip it in the bud so you can get that yield of summer and winter squash that will feed you through the summer, that will feed your family through the winter, that gives you that enjoyment of being able to say, I got a yield, a nutritious, delicious yield out of my garden. So keep on top of it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, totally worth it for dealing with squash bugs. And now is when you need to start checking and start working on it. So thanks for watching today. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. I'll be back real soon for my garden here in Portland, Oregon. Thanks.